Good evening, everyone. My name is Guion Foreman, president of the Chicago Police Board, and I am calling the board's May 26th public meeting to order. To protect the public's health in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is taking place remotely. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, I have determined that holding this meeting in person is not practical or prudent. The city of Chicago remains subject to the governor's disaster proclamation due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the disease continues to be a threat, especially to the unvaccinated and people with certain health conditions. We are therefore having the meeting remotely this month. This meeting is open to the public via video and audio conference and is being carried live by CAN TV. Members of the public are on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. We have a court reporter making a transcript of this meeting. In addition to police board members, we have several key city officials here with us this evening. I will begin by taking attendance so it is clear who is participating in this meeting. Please say here after I read your name. Police Board Vice President Paula Wolf.
Here.
Board Member Stephen Block.
Here.
Board Member Mariley Cusack.
Here.
Board Member Michael Eady.
Here.
Board Member Steve Flores.
Here.
Board Member Jorge Montes.
Here.
Board Member Andrea Zopp.
Here.
Superintendent of Police David Brown.
Here.
Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, Andrea Kirsten.
Here.
Acting Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety, Nathaniel Wackman.
Here.
Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Internal Affairs, Yolanda Talley.
Here.
First Deputy Superintendent, Eric Carter. Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Patrol, Brian McDermott.
Here.
Deputy Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Detectives, Rahman Mohammed.
Here.
General Counsel to Superintendent Dana O'Malley.
Here.
And Executive Director of the Police Board, Max Caproni.
Here.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the items on the meeting agenda. We will have time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Once again, members of the public are currently on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. When we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will unmute each speaker. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board's April 21st regular public meeting?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Our next regular public meeting will be held Thursday, June 16th at 7:30 p.m. Whether this will be an in-person meeting or remote will be determined closer to the meeting date. The police board meets in executive session to consider personnel matters and litigation. Those discussions of personnel and litigation are closed to the public as authorized by sections 2C, 1, 3, 4, and 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. A summary of the items discussed in the executive session is posted in the minutes of the meetings on our website. Is there a motion to close those sessions as authorized by the Open Meetings Act?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're pleased to have with us this evening Tamara Mahal, the city's Chief Coordination Officer for Community Safety. She will be speaking on the Community Safety Coordination Center's efforts to reduce and prevent violence in Chicago's communities. Ms. Mahal?
Good evening, and thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here. Our story really starts back in COVID, and I think COVID was a very interesting challenge for the city of Chicago, specifically the government, because it really tested every single part of the way that the government operated. And as a result, we really learned a lot of lessons about the best way for an administration to operate, and a few key things about how we could work better to act in service of community. When I talk about that, it comes from experience because I had a couple of different key leadership roles during the COVID response, including overseeing operations during the shutdown, as well as overseeing the COVID-19 vaccine operation under Dr. Arwady. And I like to point to three really big lessons that we learned. I think the first is that it was the first time really that the government was forced, every single department and agency, to really view its role through a single lens. And in that case, it was through infectious disease prevention. The second really big lesson learned, because we were following the Chicago Department of Public Health, was really how to utilize data to inform our strategies and evidence to really back, but also help guide what we should be doing. I think the third thing was we were extremely successful and learned a lot of hard lessons around how to truly engage with community, but also what it means for government to be community driven and act in service of community. And as a result, the city of Chicago was able to do some pretty phenomenal work to partner with community, leading to an equitable distribution of vaccine, as well as able to address a multitude of different facets around the challenges that COVID presented. What does that have to do with violence reduction? What does that have to do with community safety? Well, Mayor Lightfoot looked at those three big lessons learned and said, we really need to take these lessons learned, the way that we operated, and apply it against really what the city's biggest epidemic is, gun violence. And as a result, she activated a new center called the Community Safety Coordination Center to be able to really look across our departments and agencies and address ultimately what the root causes of violence are. And so I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about those root causes, as well as some of the work that we're doing here at the CSCC, but I think importantly across the city of Chicago, our departments and agencies, to really address and implement a public health approach to gun violence. I often get asked this question when I'm out in community: what do you consider the root causes of violence to be? And based on extensive research and many smart people, we know that the root causes of violence ultimately sit within historic disinvestment and structural racism. And that has persisted across schools, the way public resources were laid out, including, yes, mistrust between police and community. And that has led to some of the conditions that we see that are impacting communities that experience the most violence today. Community blight, trauma, and the lack of opportunity, all of which continues to drive violence in our communities today. So how as the city are we working to approach this? I want to start by saying that we are implementing a public health framework around community safety. The reality is that violence is extremely complex, and the solutions to solve it are complex as well, and will take a long time. And in order to do that, we understood that we really needed a strong but simple framework that we could use and our departments and agencies could use. And I would note, even some of our community partners are now using, to really understand how we could implement a comprehensive, coordinated, multifaceted approach to solve this. And so we're looking across our departments and agencies to say, what are the systemic transformations that need to take place? That's not just in places like the police department, but of course is also in places about how we approach things like mental health and affordable housing, how we as a city actually hire so that we can increase diversity and maybe even address returning citizens. But we also have to look at community revitalization. We have to look at long-term solutions for reinvestment, but also targeted place-based strategies for how we address violence where it's consistently occurring. Mostly, we also have to make sure that we're focused on the right individuals. We do have a better understanding now than ever before, thanks to research partners, about who is at highest risk for violence and what are the characteristics that they share. So what are the programs, both in youth, but also in adults, that we can help to implement to say, we have opportunities, there are other pathways, how can we provide the wraparound support services necessary to ensure that someone's not a victim of violence or in many cases a perpetrator? And then finally, we know violence is consistently occurring in the city of Chicago. What can we do as a form of crisis response to ensure that we can prevent retaliation, but also make sure that we're diverting people away from the criminal justice system where necessary so they can get the comprehensive supports that they need. I said this and I'll say this again. Our big motto, and my big motto as the Chief Coordination Officer, is really that everyone does have a role to play in violence prevention and community safety. And we are really putting that statement into practice. We are working with departments across the city of Chicago and our sister agencies to really work through the framework and say, what is it that you're currently doing that helps promote safety or prevent violence? And what could we be doing if we were to look at evidence-based best practices across the country to better work together to prevent violence? And as you see on the screen right now, our departments are all doing some incredible work. Addressing the root causes of violence is not actually something that's very new. In fact, especially over Mayor Lightfoot's administration, more money has gone for equitable distribution to address some of these root causes than ever before. But we also have fundamental programs and agencies like the Chicago Department of Public Health, Chicago Police Department, the Department of Family and Support Services that have been working for decades to try to address these issues. What we want to do is make sure that they can get the most impact out of those efforts, but with support from other departments, but also utilizing risk-based assessments to ensure that they're getting to the right places and the right people in order to implement those efforts. I'm proud to say that through some of the processes we're going through, we're actually seeing departments implement new strategies already, some of which may seem pretty obvious, like, hey, Parks is going to light up more parks this summer overnight during the weekends. But some may not seem as obvious, like directing lead line replacements to daycares and high violence communities. So I think the question then becomes, okay, what are you doing over there at this new thing called the Community Safety Coordination Center? So the CSCC currently has representatives from multiple different departments, as well as full-time staff that are working to implement what we consider to be some of the gaps in violence reduction strategies amongst our departments and agencies. I think the most important thing before I get into the what we're doing, though, is the how we're doing it. The first thing is we are ensuring that our city's violence reduction strategy is community-based and hyper-local. I get this question all the time, too. What does that actually mean? Community-based for us means that we are working with violence prevention tables in communities across the city to ask them what their violence reduction strategies are, and then use the government's might and resources to come behind and back them. We're so dedicated to this strategy that we're actually working to embed community representatives into the CSCC so that they're working directly alongside us as we work to address these issues. The reality is also that violence is a block by block issue in Chicago. No neighborhood is created the same here, which means no neighborhood's violence reduction strategy could be the same. And especially in some communities, a block by block approach is needed. And so we're literally hiring block staff to get down to the block level and really better understand what the needs are and help implement strategies there. We're also using data. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but also an evidence-based approach. So many people here in Chicago have actually created strategies that are considered some of the best in the nation for violence prevention, but many other cities also have successful violence prevention approaches. So we've been working to identify what some of those are and how we could implement them quickly here in the city of Chicago. One of our biggest roles, of course, though, is that coordination role. We often say we could really maximize impact if we just had people working together to implement that comprehensive framework block by block in our communities to make sure they're getting that access to reinvestment, they're getting that access to support services, and that ultimately we're really focusing in on how do we bring these things together in a really deep way in order to address challenges. Just as a note, the CSCC is predominantly focused in the communities that have experienced most violence here in Chicago, and you can see that up there. We are already working in 15 communities, but just as we scale up, we're pretty intensely focused on 8 communities right now. Both ones where we started where existing violence prevention efforts were very strong, but also ones that we started to move to because we've seen concerning increases in violence there this spring, and we wanted to be able to support those efforts. So what does that actually mean? What is the CSCC itself doing? Well, I like to describe what we're doing against the framework as we're asking our departments to do this as well. And there's a few key activities in terms of near-term strategies that we're launching right now or have already launched. One of those is anti-violence marketing campaigns. You'll see our first one launching next week. And the reason we think that's really important is that behavioral change and social marketing campaigns have proven, not just in different types of violence, but across multiple fields, to be able to change behaviors. And so we're asking ourselves, what would it look like for us to try to change gun carrying in the city of Chicago, and being able to work with marketing firms, but importantly, key committees to be able to develop and implement those campaigns. We're also looking at several targeted place-based activities that we've started working through. One is the Home and Business Protection Program, which will provide reimbursement for security resources like cameras, lights, or GPS vehicular tracking devices to residents and business owners across the city, but where we're also going to be partnering and are partnering with community-based organizations to actually distribute those resources for free and get them installed on blocks that experience the most violence in the city of Chicago. Vacant lot greening is considered the most cost-effective violence reduction method, and in the city of Chicago, we're launching a major effort to get out there, green vacant lots, and get them maintained, especially because the city owns an overwhelming amount, over 10,000, that we know if we could address, we could improve the physical landscape of our communities and address violence as well. We're working to bring all of our infrastructure departments together to address some of the ongoing issues we see across the streetscape, whether that's lighting, road improvements, or yes, addressing vacant lots as well. And then we're really going to be working here. We're doing some kickoffs pretty soon to actually build and incentivize block clubs. City of Chicago is known for block clubs, but they're also a huge violence prevention strategy. We believe if we could get them up and operating on more of our violent blocks, that we would have neighbors out more, building better relationships and being able to intervene on each other's behalf. Last week, we also launched a new type of training called mental health skills building. This is going out and is going to serve over 500 workers across violence prevention, but also direct service providers in our 15 communities. This training will not only teach people how to recognize someone that's in crisis, but provide the skills necessary to actually calm yourself and make better decisions. This is the same type of skills building that's done with professional athletes to get them to make really good decisions under pressure and perform better. We think that there's an interesting tie over to violent behavior and being able to pass these skills on, particularly to populations that may have experienced a lot of trauma and as a result need these types of skills. And finally, Epic Crisis Response, we're also activating what are called community activation networks. Think of these as high-risk intervention teams that are working on a weekly basis to conduct essentially shooting reviews and violence reviews, identify where they're seeing disturbing trends, but also look ahead at what might be coming up in those communities. The teams are diverse. They're made up of mental health and substance use providers, grassroots organizations, faith leaders, CPD, our schools. They have representation from street outreach and victim services, employment and housing agencies. And they're small but mighty in that they're able to identify the issues that are going on, request support from the city, but also request support from each other. And our hope is that in working at the community level to do this, we'll be able to more quickly identify where violence is taking place and respond to it. And I'll also note these teams are going to be supporting us when we have an incident of what we call community concern, juvenile that's killed, potentially a mass shooting, something along those lines where we really need to activate very quickly to be able to support the community's needs at that time and prevent retaliation. My hope is that this has given you a brief but good overview as to both what the city's public health approach is to violence reduction, but also what we're doing here at the new Community Safety Coordination Center to prevent violence and increase safety. We're seeing a lot of potential here. We're getting great feedback from the community, and we're working very closely with all of our partners and departments across the city of Chicago, including the Chicago Police Department, to really try to create a sustainable and comprehensive approach to violence reduction that we hope is really the key solution in ensuring that instead of seeing a roller coaster of reductions and increases, we're able to see the kind of sustainable reductions that have occurred in other major cities over the past 20 years. And with that, I will turn it back over.
Thank you. Board members, any questions, thoughts? Superintendent?
Yes, I have a question again. This is Michael Eady, and I was listening as you were presenting And one thing I did not hear was how are you tapping into the faith community? You expressed about a block by block strategy. And if there's any network that is able to be a resource in implementing that, it would be the faith community. And in particular, there is a Building Blocks of Peace network that has been in place for just about a decade now, in the sense of building over those many years. Have you connected to that resource?
Hi, Pastor. Thank you for the question. And I would just note that the faith community is an important part of our strategy. We have faith representation on our steering committee, as well as in pretty much every facet we work through, faith is represented. We have been meeting with Building Blocks of Peace. We're working with them. We're actually going to be utilizing the Building Blocks of Peace events website to help promote events, working with Nate and team there. And our hope is that that's a key partner we can utilize in our place-based approach as we work to identify kind of where these high areas of violence are and how we can deploy volunteers there.
Thank you.
So this is Paula Wolf. Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting and comprehensive. Is there a place where you have posted like the measurement outcomes that you're expecting from each of these strategies?
Thank you for the question. Our new website launches next week, and it will include that information.
So can you give the website for any of the online viewers?
It's not launched yet. It's going to launch on June 1st. So I don't have it yet, but you'll see announcements come out, and we're happy to send it to the police board for distribution as well.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, thoughts? But thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and for this incredible information. And we look forward to being your partner in helping to solve this incredibly complex challenge. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We have several police disciplinary cases on the agenda this evening. The police board, as authorized by the Open Meetings Act, has considered in a closed meeting 3 police disciplinary cases. The board will now take final action on these cases. Regarding case number 20PB2976, is there a motion to find police officer Angel Nunez guilty of engaging in domestic altercations while off duty and to discharge him from the Chicago Police Department?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf?
Aye.
Cusack?
Aye.
Edie? Reverend Edie?
Aye.
Flores?
Aye.
Montez?
Aye.
Zop?
Aye.
And I vote in favor of the motion. Voting in favor are board members Wolf, Cusack, Edie, Flores, Montez, Zop, and myself. The motion passes by a vote of 7-0. Is there a motion to adopt the written findings and decisions that have been reviewed by all board members who participated in the case?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Regarding case number 21PB2983, is there a motion to find police officer Rebecca Thrustat guilty of making false reports regarding a gun recovery and to discharge her from the Chicago Police Department?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf,
Aye.
Cusack,
Aye.
Edie,
Aye.
Flores,
Aye.
Montez,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
and I vote in favor of the motion. Voting in favor are board members Wolf, Cusack, Edie, Flores, Montez, Zop, and myself. The motion passes by a vote of 7-0. Is there a motion to adopt the written findings and decisions that have been reviewed by all board members who participated in the case?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Regarding case number 22 PB 3003, the superintendent filed charges against police officer Robert Hughes, recommending that he be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for misconduct during an off-duty domestic incident. The superintendent subsequently moved to withdraw these charges without prejudice because Hughes resigned from the Chicago Police Department. Is there a motion to grant the superintendent's motion?
So moved, Paula Wolf.
Second, Michael Eady.
I will now call on members of the board for their votes. Wolf,
Aye.
Locke, Cusack,
Aye.
Edie,
Aye.
Flores,
Aye.
Montez,
Aye.
Zop,
Aye.
and I vote in favor of the motion. Voting in favor are board members Wolf, Locke, Cusack, Edie, Flores, Montez, Zop, and myself. The motion passes by a vote of 8-0. The written decisions in the cases on which the board took final action this evening will be entered as of today's date, sent to the parties, and then posted on the board's website. There are also 2 announcements of disciplinary rulings on the agenda tonight. I and Vice President Paula Wolf will make these announcements. Vice President Wolf.
Well, I have not found my notes yet, so could I go second? I
Yes,
apologize.
You can go second. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Pursuant to section 2-7-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of 2 police officers. In a request for review numbers 22-04 and 22-05, the Chief Administrator recommended that Officer Adolfo Bolanos be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for discharging his weapon at Michael Elam in violation of General Order G03-02. Mr. Elam died of his injuries. The Chief Administrator also recommended that Officer Guillermo Gama Jr. be suspended for 30 days for failing to immediately request appropriate medical aid for Mr. Elam. The superintendent did not agree with the Chief Administrator's recommendations. The superintendent disagreed with certain findings and recommended that Officers Bolanos and Gama each be suspended for 10 days. After considering this matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming the Chief Administrator's recommendations for discipline of both officers. Regarding Officer Bolanos, an evidentiary hearing before the police board is necessary to determine whether he violated any of the police department's rules of conduct, and if so, the appropriate disciplinary action. A written copy of this opinion will be posted on the board's website as required by municipal code.
Thank you. I don't know which is slower tonight, my brain or the computer. Pursuant to section 2-78130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of a sergeant. In request for review number 22-06, the Chief Administrator recommended that Sergeant Onetta Sampson be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for firing her weapon at a vehicle while off duty in violation of General Order G03-02. The superintendent disagreed with the Chief Administrator's recommendation, and the superintendent recommended a 180-day suspension. After considering the matter, it is my opinion the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming the Chief Administrator's recommendation for discipline. An evidentiary hearing before the police board is necessary to determine whether Sergeant Sampson violated any of the police department rules of conduct, and if so, the appropriate disciplinary action. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code. I don't know, President Foreman, if you mentioned that we are randomly selected to review these cases.
Okay, yeah. So what happens when there's a disagreement case between COPA and the superintendent's office is one member of the board is selected, randomly selected each month, and you'll get a list comes out each month, randomly selected, and it goes in the order. So in this case, I received one case, Vice President Wolf received one case. Had there been another case, whoever was third in line. So next month, that process will start over again. So you've seen this kind of process before, but that's typically what happens when there's a disagreement case. Next up, Superintendent, if you would like to give your report, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by saying good evening to all the police board members and thank you for your service on the police board and dedication to reviewing all these cases and making tough decisions, obviously, and also to all the residents that are viewing tonight's police board. Around Chicago around this time, just a few, just one day from Memorial Day weekend, it always is a special time for all of our neighborhoods around Chicago. It's the unofficial start of summer, with many residents taking part in the many outside events and activities scheduled. But there's no reason why we can't celebrate and enjoy each other's company and have fun safely. Every year, year-round, Chicago Police Department is proactive in preparing community engagement and law enforcement strategies for this holiday weekend and throughout the summer, as well as for the rest of the year. Historically, when the weather gets warmer, many large cities experience increases in violence, and so does Chicago. But every day, Chicago officers work with residents fighting violence and removing guns off the street. And we as vigilant this weekend. Also, I want to just give a shout out to Tamara Mahal. Her presentation really hits the nail on the head. Our collaboration with Tamara and her team is our strategy. So for the holiday weekend coming up, we have extra police resources throughout all of our neighborhoods, but also to our more than 40 special events that's scheduled throughout the city for the weekend. Some of these events include a concert series at Soldier Field for the Coldplay team, as well as a Sueños Fest, that's a Latin festival in Grant Park. The Crosstown Classic double headers for 2 of the days of the weekend, as well as many other neighborhood events across the city. I want to emphasize that resources are already been dedicated to the neighborhoods, and to all the neighborhood events will remain in those neighborhoods. CPD, we will also concentrate our efforts on our parks and our beaches, as well as the other very popular destinations throughout the city. In addition, the department will also have an increased bike patrol, as well as deploy extra resources and to enhance safety and security at these major events on fixed posts and roving posts. We'll also continue our increased resources on our public transit system. We've conducted numerous mobilization drills and outdoor roll calls to increase our visibility, and we're maintaining a very high uniform visibility across the CTA this weekend and beyond. We'll continue our targeted and strategic deployment across the city in every neighborhood. So far this year, homicides are down 10% and shootings are down 16%. In the 15 areas that Tamara mentioned, they encompass 55 of our police beats. In these beats, we implement specific deployments on the blocks that Tamara has mentioned. These 55 beats that's over these 15 areas account for over 50% of the violence in the city year over year, going back decades. So the department has placed more resources in these areas to collaborate with the Community Safety Coordination Center, as well as conduct police activities that help keep the neighborhood safe. So far this year, in those 55 beats that's encompassed in those 15 areas, homicides and shootings are down even more than they are citywide. In those 55 beats, homicides are down 37%. And shootings in those 55 beats are down 36%. So we'll continue this collaboration, this engagement, and the visibility in these areas, and continue to expand, as Tamara mentioned, to other areas as we scale what we see as working. Officers will never stop working to make sure we're enhancing public safety, growing community trust, strengthening our investigations, as well as promoting officer wellness and making transformational change through reform with our consent decree. Thank you so much this evening. Back to you, President Foreman.
Thank you. Superintendent, I had this conversation with First Deputy a couple of weeks ago. As you know, as it relates to this forum, there's been a group of residents who've come for the last, as long as I can remember, 4 or 5 years, complaining about the open air drug markets,
Right.
West Side. And I received several calls saying thank you for your efforts over there. I guess there was a significant bust that you had. And so the fact that they reached out to us, you know, they were coming every month for quite a while. COVID kind of slowed some of that down. And so I wanted to make sure to publicly acknowledge the fact that those neighbors of ours reached out and grateful for your efforts. So keep up the good work. I know that there's a lot more to do, but those residents specifically did reach out to us to say thank you for your efforts, but keep working hard. So
Yes.
thank you. Next up, Chief Copa, Chief Administrator.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, let me apologize in advance. My dog is barking a lot in the background, so we'll see how this goes. But for my updates, I'd like to just start with sort of some highlights, statistically speaking, as I do most often on these meetings from last month, the month of April. So in April, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability received 437 complaints and notifications. Of those, 116 remained under COPA jurisdiction. And as we see month over month, 60% of those allegations were Fourth Amendment or improper search and seizure related. So that continues to be the highest percentage of cases that we receive complaints on. In April, we had 4 officer-involved shooting notifications, and we also closed 2 officer-involved shooting investigations. Also, and I think perhaps more importantly than the data from last month, is sort of where our footprint was in the community. COPA engaged quite a bit in different community relations, and some of these activities were actually alongside of leadership from CPD as well, which I always think is a good opportunity for us to show the support that our mutual offices have for one another when possible and appropriate. But so specifically, we were out at Tamara Mahal's and the Mayor Office's Community Safety Youth Town Hall, the MICFA Challenge, working with young people as they were exploring issues of policing and public safety. Also Junior Achievement Career Day, again with young people. We had the opportunity to speak at a Leaders Network community meeting, and then also Nobel Neighbors community meeting. And particularly wanted to lift up the Nobel Neighbors community meeting on April 19th. What was important about that to me was the feedback that the community was providing with respect to some of the community policing, specifically talking most directly about efforts in both the 11th District and 15th District, and really highlighting some of the strong work that was happening. And it was evident from the folks in attendance, both on the CPD side as well as the community side, that there has been positive relational improvement that was evidenced and spoken out about by community members. And then lastly, I just wanted to pivot a little bit tonight in light of Tamara's presentation. I think it's important to understand sort of the broader framework that City Hall and the Mayor's administration has sort of asked all city agencies to engage in when it comes to issues of public safety. So starting back in January of this year, all leaders of all the various city agencies, everything from the water department to streets and sands to CPD and our sister agencies as well, like the park districts and CPS, CTA, everyone came together for an all-day cabinet retreat where these issues, these concepts that Tamara was presenting on tonight were laid out for the entire leadership team across the city. And what they asked of all of us, whether or not we're directly a public safety serving agency, they asked for all of us to think about how our work connects to these issues, right? And so it's been an ongoing conversation that we've had over the last several months since that first cabinet meeting. And it's provided a unique opportunity for staff at COPA to really think beyond sort of the numbers I report out on every month. You know, complaints in, cases out, data is important, and the transparency around those issues are certainly important. But what really speaks, I think, to our staff when you talk about issues more broadly of public safety is that, you know, those 15 areas, those neighborhoods that we're targeting where we see the most violence and that we want to really wrap services around, those areas, if you overlay them with where our complaints come from, it's the same places, it's the same people. So the folks that are coming into our door for one specific reason actually may need all of these services that the city has sort of to marshal at this issue. So it's led to COPA and COPA staff and our leadership team really thinking about how can we connect differently with complainants. Yes, our core mission is, of course, to be more efficient and effective in our investigation and conclusion of these cases. But how do we do that in a way that best serves Chicagoans? And so there's some concrete examples of that are already in the works, such as us taking on the task of wanting to step up and be responsible for the maintenance and cleaning of some of these vacant lots in some of those same neighborhoods where we get the most of our complaints from, wanting to have a visible presence in the neighborhoods that we serve and knowing that's important to do that. But also from understanding that, you know, we are in this independent agency, right? And we have to have the freedom to make the decisions that we think are right under the facts and the evidence and the law, but we have to do so in connection with the whole of government, right? As we always hear about with leadership. So really we're reaching out across to other agencies like the Department of Family Services and understanding what is it that they offer folks, because again, the people coming in our doors, while they may be there to file a complaint of police misconduct, they actually are probably experiencing things like housing insecurity, food insecurity. They may have issues with job training, all of the same factors that are contributing to the public safety crisis that we find ourselves in are things that the folks that we interact with are also experiencing. So it's really challenged our staff to find new and different ways to meet the actual underlying needs of many of the people that come in our doors. So excited to hopefully see some more progress in that area over the next coming months. But really, this to me is not a one-time initiative just for the summer and trying to be safer this summer. This is what the work of my agency needs to look like going forward. So just wanted to share that, and thank you for the time to do so.
Thank you very much. I will now call upon members of the public who signed up in advance to speak. To make sure we have time to hear from all speakers, there is a 2-minute time limit on comments. In order to unmute yourself for those participating by phone, please press *6. Our first speaker, Dejay Allen.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm having an issue with my camera, but I'll just talk. I'm a member of Chicago's Youth Council for Police Accountability, and we've been showing up to these meetings and talking about a panel event series that we were going to have, and it finally happened this past Sunday. It was super fun. It was super dope. We had a lot of awesome speakers, one of them being you, President Guion, and we loved hearing everybody come and talk and share their expertise and network. I've had panelists reach out to me and just tell me how they're working with different panelists to build things in their communities and in their schools and their organizations. So up next for the Youth Council, we're just we're trying to conclude this term and start working on next year's cohort, and so that we can do bigger and better things for next year, because this was our first year. And we're super thankful for you guys' support and giving us time to come speak here and everything. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful day that you all put together. Got it. Very just incredible to see the efforts of our young people. I think that these are the kinds of efforts it's important for all of Chicago to support. And so we absolutely welcome your continued support, and you all will be the future board members and, you know, police officers and heads of COPA and that kind of thing. So really, really important that you all continue to keep up the good work in any way that we can support you. We definitely want to do so. Next speaker, Lakeisha Caples.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good, thank you. My name is Lakeisha Caples, and the organization that I'm starting is actually addressing the on and offline sexual violence that a lot of women and girls experience. And unfortunately, I'm one of millions of people who have been impacted by cyber sexual violence. And I wanted to share my story about how I reached out to CPD, and I understand CPD is limited in its capacity to deal with on and offline sexual violence. However, what CPD can control, it does not. In 2020, when I went to District 1 to report being a victim of cyber sexual violence, I was informed by a female detective that if I didn't want explicit images of me online, I should not have allowed someone to take them. Well, I did not consent to anything like that, of course, but little did the detective know that I was aware of the Illinois statute, Section 51123, on non-consensual distribution of intimate images, and that it is a felony in Illinois to distribute any images without consent, regardless if the victim consented to the recording or not. The distribution is what is a felony. The detective refused to help me or even investigate my case. I later filed a complaint, but the complaint was dismissed. I called agency after agency trying to get assistance and did not receive any. The truth is that most of the victims who are victimized by on and offline sexual violence, they never receive justice. The perpetrator is never arrested. And in case after case that I've read and victims that I've spoken with, almost all of them stated that their case was blotched from the very beginning at the police level. The police did not secure evidence.
Ms. Caples, I'm sorry. We're at the time, but can I ask?
Okay.
One, I'm sorry that this has happened to you. My apologies. Both.
Thank you.
Both for the incident happening as well as the incident with dealing with the police department. Is this something that you would still want to pursue the complaint? If yes, I can ask Mr. Caproni to get you in touch with COPA to just to ensure that this process has gone the proper channels.
Well, there's two things. That is one, to address, follow up with this with COPA, but also the problem is that most police officers are not trained on how to deal with cyber sexual violence, because it's dealing with something that's online and the collection of evidence and witnesses. So it is a process that most of them, and I've spoken with officers too, they weren't aware of it. They weren't aware of the organized crime that's online, because this is a subculture. It's organized crime. And they have admitted to me that they don't know, they're not familiar with this. So the other thing would be training. Who could you direct me to discuss training?
So what I'll do is I'll get in touch with you or Mr. Caproni, and we can superintendent, we can have a conversation to try to figure out how to look at this very specific issue.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Melanie Scholes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melanie Scholes, and a group of concerned citizens and I started an initiative called Citizens for Safer Celebrations. Our purpose is to proactively inform the public about the dangers of indiscriminate celebratory gunfire and the harmful use of illegal fireworks. First of all, there's nothing celebratory about using a gun to celebrate any holiday, since a bullet fired into the air does not dissipate. It descends at a velocity of over 200 feet per second, a speed that could easily penetrate a human skull and kill someone. Secondly, it is imperative that we address the use of illegal fireworks because every year, hospital emergency rooms treat injuries to all parts of the body, especially hands and fingers. The National Fire Protection Association estimates there were 12,900 fireworks-related injuries in 2017. In addition to personal injuries, we have learned that homeowners and apartment building owners have incurred excessive fire damage to their properties, which caused displacement of their residents. In Illinois, the Pyrotechnic Use Act bans the sale, possession, and use of all consumer fireworks. Violating this act can result in up to a year in prison and a $2,500 fine. Yet, certain people in our Southside neighborhoods seem to be fully stocked. There is little deterrent to buying fireworks in Indiana and transporting them over the state line. We're here to ask that, we want to ask the Chicago Police Department to continue to serve and protect us by using their vast resources, including ShotSpotter, community policing officers, and community organizers to join us in spreading our message and saving lives. And if there are any other resources we should ask for, please let us know what those are.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your efforts to try to combat this important issue. Our next speaker,
Okay.
Rodney Johnson, and I'm sorry, Ms. Scholes, we'll make sure that someone from CPD gets your information that we can coordinate. Our next speaker,
thank you.
Rodney Johnson.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hi, I'm Rodney Johnson, and I'm representing the 7400 South Indiana Block Club as it relates to violence that we have on 75th Street in the area that's known as Black Wall Street, between basically between King Drive up through Indiana. Last year, due to the flash mobs that tend to come and want to party on nice nights, warm nights on the weekend, and just totally disrupt the neighborhood, a woman was killed. There was a situation following that where Mayor Lightfoot, the superintendent, and different police brass came out and addressed the neighborhood with a talk. And we came up with a plan to, stop it, which we did, working with both the 3rd District and the 6th District, because 75th Street is the dividing line between those two. And it was a great plan that we came up with. Well, this year, the first warm day that we had about a month ago, maybe a month and a couple of weeks ago, we had a similar incident. The flash mob showed up on Saturday night, and around 2:30 in the morning of Sunday morning, 2:30 a.m., there were roughly 50 gunshots that were fired. Fortunately, with 50 gunshots being fired, and it was a shootout, it was a back and forth, only one person was injured with a leg injury. And so we have had some conversations again with our police districts to do the same thing like they did last year. And then it's been requested that we also work with our aldermen to do parking restrictions that can help. And what I'm here to ask is if we can, we're in the process of having a meeting with the police commanders and the aldermen, but I also wanted to ask if we could also have the deputy chiefs of, our areas that work with the 3rd and the 6th District to be a part of that meeting as well. So we can really, get a handle on the violence, because as it gets warmer, for whatever reason, they've targeted 75th Street as a hangout, And these people come from all over. They don't live in the area. These aren't people who are doing this who live there. They're traveling from other places.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Superintendent or First Deputy, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'll start out, President Foreman, and thank you so much to the caller, person on the call, for reminding us of our plan was very effective. We need to put that plan back into place. And yes, we'll get the area deputy chief there at the meeting, and any other resources that you need, if we can get the contact information just to make sure. And Chief of Patrol McDermott and First Deputy Carter's on the line to follow through on this.
Okay, so who should I give my information to, or?
The police board, and we'll contact.
Yeah, we'll make sure
Okay.
to pass it. We have your information. We'll make sure to pass it along.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anthony Crawford. Anthony Crawford.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Okay. Hi, how you doing? My name is Anthony Crawford. I'm in an interesting intersection. I'm with Operation Neighborhood Safety and with Citizens for Safer Celebrations. And we just want to reiterate two things. One is that Mr. Johnson and Ms. Scholes and we don't just represent a few individuals asking for these things. We actually all are residents of the Greater Grand Crossing. And so it's Greater Grand Crossing that's asking for increased presence on 75th Street and about something to be done about the fireworks with the kids. Most people may not be aware of it, but about 36% of those injuries are kids that are between the ages of 10 and 14. They get injured by fireworks. And if we can all think back to when we were 10 to 14, you just don't know enough about the world to know how dangerous the fireworks are. You can only see the fun. So I think it's our responsibility as adults to make sure that although I know it's inconvenient for the officers, they really need to pull over and confiscate the fireworks from the children and make their presence known so we don't have to have this type of terrible tragedies occur. And that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jennifer Edwards.
You can hear me?
Yes. Good evening.
Okay. Yeah, good evening. Thank you. So sometimes it helps to say something nice. Not that you hear a lot of that these days. So I thought I would say a little something today. Last month, we spoke about a project called Together We Can that we're starting in a few of the Southside districts that involved an examination of how to tackle some of the crime issues. We're bringing the community, clergy, business owners, CPD, and others together to examine and to try to take care of these crime issues. At our joint meeting last Wednesday, we talked with a gas station owner who expressed his frustration with us about reoccurring crime issues at his business. He informed me this morning that he's had a large, continuous presence of police on a daily basis since he met with us, and crime has diminished greatly. We want to thank Commander Ben for the special attention given to this business owner and for agreeing to continue our community and police-led project. We appreciate her interaction with us, and we hope you will celebrate her professionalism as commander of the 6th District. We look forward to continuing our joint project and walking our district with CPD again this summer, especially helping with gas station crime. And I'm part of Operation Neighborhood Safety also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Matt Brandon. Mr. Brandon. Next speaker, Brad Redrick. Brad Redrick.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, my name is Brad Redrick. I'm the chairman of the Grand Crossing Park Neighborhood Network. I want to thank you, members of the board, and you, Chairman, and the Superintendent and Police Command for hearing me. So we're situated in Grand Crossing, and as some speakers have already said, you know, we collaborate all back and forth. So on the 6th District side, there is no community organizer in place out of the district. This is a tremendous hindrance to our operations, and it is overworking the police, who are really not trained to do that. It's been over a year that we haven't had this organizer. And so our collaborative efforts are really impinged. We did get a new organizer in the 3rd District, but the 6th District needed one worse than the 3rd District, okay? It is stressing people. We can't, you know, as you all well know, so things like the email of the people that are participating are controlled by the organizers. We don't have access, and we're trying to get ready for the summer and all of the youth-connected problems that need community input. So this is a pretty tough situation. If you've ever done this grassroots work, you know this. Perhaps folks higher up the chain may not realize it, but we're really begging that this vacancy can be filled so that we can help the officers, take pressure off of the officers, and help everybody and keep the crime down, like the superintendent was talking about, and the earlier speakers talking about the block-to-block strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, I know that everyone is resource constrained. We have a group of residents who are trying their best to help you out, and that you have to try to figure out how to use resources effectively, and perhaps you can take a look and see where you can move resources around to provide some resources to allow this organization to try to provide us some assistance to you all.
Yeah, this call is very, very on point. We need this community organizer hired ASAP. So First Deputy will get on top of it first thing. Try to get that position filled.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lee Taylor. Lee Taylor. Next speaker, Laree Suttle.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Chicago. My name is Laree Suttle. Currently, I'm a law student at DePaul. I have not spoken at a monthly board meeting since November 18, 2021. Being mindful of time, I would like to share 12 updates with the public, which is my timeline for this year. And if time permits, I will mildly share my opinion on what I have directly observed since the enactment of Chicago's consent decree, and what should be done to best help all of us move forward as a city. Anything I do not have time to orate on the record this evening, I kindly ask be admitted for the record through the Executive Director for the Chicago Police Board, Matt Caproni, or Executive Assistant to the Chicago Police Board, Jasmine Rollins, for follow-up in this month's community input report. 1, January 17th of this year, Copa was FOIA'd for an officer-involved shooting that took place on February 11, 2012. The FOIA requested investigative files for 7 specific items pursuant to 6 internal policies dated from August 25th, 2019 to July 14, 2020. February 25th, I received an extension letter from COPA requesting more time to find the documents requested. March 2nd, a response regarding this specific request was given. COPA did not have any of the materials that I requested. A more detailed report will be shared next week with the independent monitoring team via their website, as discussed on May 19th's public listening session. Thank you to COPA staff, specifically Kelly Gardner, and newly promoted Chief of Staff, Jay, for reaching out via telephone to clarify each policy when needed. Additionally, huge thanks for meeting with me on March 9th via Teams to discuss feedback for the officer-involved shooting, officer-involved death policy, the criminal and civil lawsuit policy, and on February 7th, 2020, I'm out of.
Yes.
Can I keep going?
No, no, no. We
or
have to keep
submit
going.
the-
But if you can send
submit it?
if you can, yes, please submit it to Max or Jasmine. And
Sounds good.
all right, thank you very much.
All right.
The next speaker, Krista Noel. Ms. Noel?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. How is everyone?
Good evening.
Yeah. So, I'm upset about a few things, especially the shooting of the 13-year-old around the gas station just because cops can't catch up with kids. And I'm upset about the communication that was sent out by the police board. But my question remains the same as my question from last month, and that is, what is going on with the Nikita Brown case and Bruce Diker?
Copa or superintendent?
I believe that's going to be COPA. I think those are COPA cases that are under investigation.
Sure. Well, if you're asking about the Nikita Brown matter, I know, Ms. Noel, I know, first of all, hello, and I know you're well aware that the investigation was concluded last October by COPA, went to CPD for superintendent's review, and then the case went to the Department of Law for their review and their next steps. So as soon as COPA is in a position to make available to the public our report, the summary report of investigation, we will do that as soon as possible. And I look forward to that being a possibility. If there's any specific questions with respect to the officer involved shooting involving the 13-year-old child, certainly the investigation is ongoing. And we responded to the scene that night, as we always do in officer involved shootings. We have had contact with the boy's mother in order to move forward to whatever extent we are able on a transparency level. I'll take this opportunity. I don't know if I'm being asked, but obviously the city's video release policy, anytime there's an officer involved shooting, it's COPA's responsibility to publish the videos of that incident. That becomes difficult when the Juvenile Court Act is implicated, as is in this case, because it involves a minor. So we look forward to working through the family's attorney to see whether we can get agreement and possibly a court order in order to release those videos. So that's where our effort is with respect to transparency, and the investigation is ongoing.
Superintendent Brown, what was the decision that you made?
I'm going to refer my response to our General Counsel, Dana O'Malley. He's got a couple of updates there too as well.
Sure. Good evening. Good evening, Ms. Noel. The case was referred to the Department of Law, as I stated last month, and since then, Officer Diker has retired.
He's retired. But does that mean that the case is no longer in the Department of Law, or does it mean that and that he's just done? Is that what that means?
It means that Officer Diker is no longer an employee of the department.
So the Department of Law is no longer involved?
Can we get back to you with that answer? So I don't know, because law is not on this call. So I will work with Max, and we'll follow up with the Department of Law to understand the specifics of where that investigation stands. If Officer Geiger is no longer employed by the Chicago Police Department, then there's not much that the police board certainly can do in terms of, a hearing around it for sure, because if he's no longer an employee. But I don't know what that means as far as the investigation itself. So I'll work with Max to get an answer, and we will get back to you.
Yeah, and wouldn't that COPA could release the report because he's gone?
Let me go do some research. Let's not answer this without me getting some facts. Let me get some facts. I'll work with Max to get back to you. But I was gonna ask you said you were not happy with something that the police board released. What was that?
No, I said the police.
Oh, the police. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. I didn't want to be in trouble with you, Miss Noel. I try to stay on the good side. Superintendent Brown, you stay on his case. Don't stay off of my case, stay on his case. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Our final speaker is Mr. Robert Moore.
Yeah, Mr. Foreman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Noel got more than 4 minutes from the time that COPA person starts to speak. I imagine she got like 6 or 7 minutes. So I just note that for the record. Today is the Feast of the Ascension of the Lord, and there should not be public proceedings conducted on this holy day of obligation in the Catholic calendar. RJM revoking necessity herein under protest continues. In this conveyance, RGM makes public and asserts to the public record the most recent developments of the Institute of St. Michael the Archangel agenda of the conversion of each and every interaction between ISMA members, Institute of St. Michael the Archangel, and representatives of nominal government entities of any and every type of nominal government entity. With all of any and all activity ever conducted, regardless of type of project referenced herein conducted within the macro agenda, constituted of the commitment to convert each and every unavoidable citizen to nominal government entity official interaction into at least a sliver or smidgen of a setback for Lucifer's demonstrable agenda within the larger agenda of converting each and every personal interaction of any such type, whatever, into such type setback. So this all is being posted at JN21-15, trotctr.tripod.com/ISMARJM CHIPOLBDMCC052622.html. Introduction. This is an ISMA project, priorities, principles, and pursuit. This is inchoate and is subject to being upgraded in the future. But the first issue is in the interactions with nominal government entities of ISMA members, procurement of evidence usable in the pursuit of A, the revocation of whatever nominal government entity's charter would ever be an issue. In this case, the City of Chicago's charter, within the pursuit of the revocation of all the charters of any and all nominal government entities which have continued to be controlled by the global plantation overlord genocidist, present composition of which Dr. John Allen referenced 100 years ago as the Committee of 600, subject to the anathematization.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Your 2 minutes is up. At this time, all members of the public who signed up to speak have been called. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move adjournment, Paula Wolf.
Second, Mike Coedy.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passed and the meeting is adjourned. I wish everyone a peaceful holiday weekend. Let's try to stay safe. Peace to all of the neighborhoods, the officers as well. Let's have a peaceful start to the summer. Thank you so much.